Today we're going to start a series of worksheets on value drawing. These are rules for value drawing that can be applied to most any object or subject. So, number one, remember that value is the relative lightness or darkness of an object and its surfaces. In a good drawing, you're going to have some darkest darks and some lightest lights, no matter how light or dark the objects are. So as we work on these things, keep in mind we want to get the full range of value available with the materials that we're using. Value is used to create the illusion of form or the illusion of three dimensions in a drawing. Drawings are flat surfaces, they're two-dimensional, and we're trying to create the illusion of three-dimension. All right, first thing I would suggest you use is I would avoid using a mechanical pencil. The lead is great because it's sharp all the time, but it gives a very thin line. I prefer to use just a regular wooden pencil. The first worksheet we're going to use is this page of the packet. We're going to use a pencil. You're going to find I'm going to turn the paper a lot. Let me go through some. I'm going to give you some samples, and then we're going to move on to a finished product, but you're not going to have to watch me do the whole thing. Alright, so you have two kinds of values that you can place in. You can place in one that gradually changes. So you can start with a dark area. My tip to you is to use a pencil. You're going to, of course, apply more pressure and less as you go down. At lighter values require less pressure, darker values require more. If your pencil is a harder pencil, it may stay lighter. You may want a couple different kinds of pencils. It's a possibility. You can do it all with a number 2 pencil that you might have in your backpack. So I'm going to start putting in a little bit of a dark value. This is about as dark as I can make my pencil. And as I lift up, I like doing a little less than I think I'm going to do, as I can always go back and put a little more. You can erase out a zone, but it's a little easier to stack it. It's important to keep your pencil strokes kind of close together. If you leave a gap in them, it's really hard to go back and not have that overlap show. Alright, now I'm seeing a pretty strong line right here, so I'm going to go back and add a little more value. What I want in this block is a very slow transition. It's not a quick process. It's easy to do the middle and then kind of come back in with little circles on the edge is what I typically do. If you put too much value down, you can go back with an eraser. I would avoid smudging. If you are going to smudge with your finger, my suggestion is to go soap and water, clean your hands, because the oils on your fingers tend to make the particles stick, and then you literally see a fingerprint more. It's harder to erase. Alright, so I'm going to start lifting. I got a lot of space to fill to get this gradually changing tone. Not quite as dark across here as it is. I want to try to keep the value consistent. Then I'm going to do another section, and I'm going to lift up. If I have an area that's too dark, I can take an eraser and lighten it up. I'm not going to scrub it really hard like you're used to when you erase a word on a piece of paper. Just barely touch that surface and you can lift off some of the color. And then I would continue coming down here. If you see an area that's darker like this, you either have to adjust up to it or erase it. And down here, I'm going to leave it pure white and just as little amount of value as I can put in here with a pencil. Finished product would look something like this. So you're going to get a gradually changing value scale So it has dark to light. I don't really see any stripes, and it's a little tricky. It takes a while. So stop and complete this box, and then come back. All right, I'm going to come back to my sample and talk to you about how do you use a gradually changing value. This is my finished one, and you have this gradually changing value. A gradually changing value is going to give you the illusion of a curved surface. So we want to make this sphere. You can see that I don't have any stripes. It comes in gradually. There's a light source here. Typically on a curved surface, as the object curves away from you, it's going to get darker. So we're going to color in this sphere next. So what I want you to do is put a little bit of dark all the way around the edges, because that is where the sphere turns away from you most. I'm a fan of turning my paper. Stay inside the line so you don't have erasures that you're out of control on. And then I like working it in, kind of gradually pulling in a little more light zone. I don't want this to look like a stripe, so I need to have that slow transition. And I'm going to start pulling in. I like working in little circles. It may not be what works for you best. If my light source is up here, it's going to take longer for that dark to transition to that space. The point is, I want to make this look like it's curved. So a curved surface has gradually changing values because the light hits those objects at all different angles, and it slowly transitions from dark to light as the light changes how it hits it, and the angles are different. It's not a fast process. And I'm going to go back, and there's a little bit of a light streak there, so I'm going to fill that in a little bit more. There's one here. It's a little fast in its transition right here, so I'm going to put a little more value. It's always easy to add a little more value than it is to erase it off. The eraser tends to be a little stronger than we want it. But if you want this highlight to be a little bit lighter, we can just barely touch that surface. You don't want it to look like an olive. Alright, so then you have a sphere. My finished product, or my finished sample, here's the sphere. Nice dark edges, slow transition, highlight consistent, and it makes it look like it's round. Alright, go on, finish this on your worksheet, put the computer on pause, and then come back to it. The next step we're going to use is we're going to make a series of flat value changes. Kind of like if you've ever been to a paint store, they have strips, and you see darker, less dark, lighter, 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 lighter. and they have them in all kinds of different colors, but they have different values of the same color. So we're going to do the same idea on this strip where you have something very dark at the top and you're going to slowly get specifically darker. Unlike the gradual change, this one should have an abrupt change where it stops in that box and you get a new color and a new color and a new color. They're going to be very close together because there's a lot of choices. It's a little tricky to get different ones. The whole key is to get darker, lighter, lighter, lighter. So what would I do? I'm going to take this and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to push as hard as I can for the first one. Edge to edge, try to keep it exactly the same. Nice consistent color throughout the box. And I'm going to put some value here. I'm going to typically go with a little less value than I think I need, and then come back in and add a little bit more. The last bottom can be white. The last box can be white. The second to the last box you may want to do just with a smudged finger, because it's really hard to get that lightest light. So then you're going to come see if there's a little bit of change here. It's subtle, but we have a lot of steps to go through. A little less pressure on the next box. When you get down to the bottom, looks a little bit over here. I'm going to darken that up. When you get down to the bottom, this one can remain white, and this one should be as light as you can make it. Now it's really challenging. I think this one you can probably make with just a really light touch. And the next one up can be a little tricky. One of the things you can try is a clean finger and just take a little bit of the dirt from your dark box and just put it in there. So you can use, and that gave it a little tiny bit of a gray, just from the graphite I could pick up with my finger. And then work up these. You don't need to sit and watch me do all of these. So go back. This is my finished byproduct. Each one of these values is gradually getting a little darker. They're subtle. These two are pretty close, but just as subtle as you can make it, so they gradually get from dark to light, and they pretty much stop at each box. It's a challenge. Go forth and do that. If you put the computer on pause again, we'll come back and talk about how to do this triangle. Okay, I'm back now. I would like you to look at this triangle. Unlike the sphere, where it was a curved surface, this triangle has two flat planes. So what you're going to do is use one value on one side and a different value on the other side to create that illusion of a three-dimensional pyramid. So I could pick one value out of this box and a different value out of this box. It doesn't really matter at this point which side you put them on, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to do over here. So I'm going to pick, and I'll put a dark value over here. Would all depend on where it is, where the light source comes from as to which color would be where. Just make a nice consistent gray on one side, and then a different consistent gray on the next side. As long as there's difference, and it should change abruptly here. Finished byproduct sample is right here. So you have two flat values. So we're going to create the illusion of gradually changing tones and abrupt changing tones, where there's a flat plane in each box. Flat planes define flat surfaces. Gradually changing tones define curved surfaces.